Hey, thanks for joining me today for episode number 71 of Podcasting Your Brand. I'm your host, producer Jemmy, providing learning lessons for you to podcast your brand. And today I'm going to be bringing you my next Podcasting 101 topic, the YouTube advice that I shared exclusively up until today with my Flint Stone Media clients. This episode is brought to you by my own brand, Flint Stone Media. Listen in and let's do this. First, by starting with one of my daily tips. Hey, it's producer Jemmy with your tip on mobile podcasting today. And I want to encourage you to do something aside from just preparing for the episode as you know the content is going to be. So you know what stops you're going to make if you're doing a travel adventure show, or you know what guests you're about to head out the door to go meet at their place and interview. But in spite of all that, despite all that, aside from all that, also capture things in the moment. So some of the best content we had on Finding Florida was the random stuff, like the random interview of the drunk girls on the bus that we met. That was really fun. Or because my co-host and I have such different backgrounds, similar hearts, but such different backgrounds, different perspectives. Some of the best content was just between he and I in between stops in the car talking between ourselves. So if you've just left a great interview, capture your thoughts right afterwards. Capture your thoughts on their space and how you think it relates to who they were and how they came across in that interview. Be in the moment as much as you are prepared. Come back every day for more tips, podcastingyourbrand.com. I'm producer Jemmy. So be sure to subscribe to me on social media, in particular TikTok, if it's still around, Instagram, and now also Clapper, and of course YouTube, but pretty much anywhere. So you get all of my daily tips and you get them first. Okay, so a little bit of quick housekeeping. Real fast, I just want to mention my workshops. If you're interested in launching a show, I have my launch maximization workshop. And if you're interested in maximizing your show, I have my podcast maximization workshop. Oh my gosh, look at that. So go to toppodcastworkshop.com to learn more information about all of that. Also, I will be appearing at Mom 2.0, the summit that's happening this year in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's a massively huge summit for entrepreneurial moms of all kinds and people who want to sell to entrepreneurial moms of all kinds. So I'm very, very honored to be on their one and only podcast panel. So you can actually go check that out at flintstonemedia.com/mom2, and you will see all the information there. If you want to get a ticket and join me in Scottsdale, Arizona, I'd love to have you. And last but certainly not least, I want to let you know about a friend of mine named Alexandra White, who's doing a phenomenal thing in audio drama. She's been working on this project. I'm super, super proud of her. And so what she's wanting to do right now is she's in the last bit of the fundraising phase. So if you want to help her fundraise, she tells compelling stories that support LGBT communities, BIPOC communities in particular. So she's just doing some really incredible stuff. And what she's working on right now is called The Divine Instruments of Redemption. And it's just going to be a compelling story, legit voice actors, and it's really going to be an impactful way that you can understand how audio can be used to really move people in other ways besides just regular podcasting. So if you want to support Alexandra in her Divine Instruments of Redemption, I will put the link for the fundraiser in my show notes. So there you go. All right, now let's get to today's lesson. Now, this is a very exciting time in podcasting because YouTube is leaning into us as a medium. So let's lean right back in, okay? Let me let you know some of the advice that I shared with my Flint Stone Media clients in a webinar a couple of Fridays ago. So as I mentioned, YouTube is leaning into podcasting right now, and I have a little bit of a theory why. I haven't asked anybody at YouTube this, but here's my theory why. My theory why is that over the last couple of years, more and more of us podcasters have been leaning into video, as I just started to do literally just a couple months ago this season with this show. So more and more of us have been leaning into video. So because of that, YouTube's like, I think there are enough podcasters playing in the sandbox that now we can play along right with them because they don't have to violate the medium that they are so known for, which is a video-based platform. So now there are enough of us playing in their sandbox. They're like, let's lean into it. So I think this is a really, really exciting time for us as podcasters because let's be honest, this is a little quick hint in case you didn't know. So I'm sure you've heard of Google. It is the number one search engine. Well, guess what the number two search engine is in the world? YouTube. So if your show is not on YouTube at all, then now's the time to get some sort of presence onto YouTube. So if people go into YouTube and they search for your topic or subject matter, there's at least a chance that you'll get found, okay, and possibly with your podcast. Also, YouTube is initiating a podcast program that will eventually bring podcasting into its platform very natively. So that means RSS feeds now in YouTube. Now, what that means for podcasters, in case you're unfamiliar with RSS feeds, is basically what your podcast is all the data, the coded data for your podcast that the podcast players listen to. Well, YouTube hasn't been built off of RSS feeds, but as they start to adopt into podcasting, the idea is, the question has been, will they adopt RSS feeds? And the answer is yes. So I'm going to tell you about how I want you to take advantage of that. And also, I want to let you know, though, this. While there are certain things that you want to dive into with YouTube and the fact that it's leaning into podcasting, it would behoove me to also say, in my not so humble opinion, you don't want to take your podcast, if it lives on Buzzsprout, Libsyn, or some other podcast hosting service. You don't want to then take your podcast, once YouTube rolls out this RSS feed natively into its platform, you don't want to transfer your podcast over. And a couple of reasons, and maybe this will change in the future, but currently, certain podcast players, some of them the big ones, they will not play your podcast at all if there are any videos whatsoever on it, even just one. You might have 3,000 episodes. If one of those video, it doesn't even show up on, it won't get accepted into that podcast platform. So you want to make sure that you don't accidentally put yourself into that rut and get stuck there. Secondly, because if YouTube is now having your show natively live within their platform, what's there to say that they don't start initiating a program or a policy where they can dynamically insert ads of their own into your podcast? And if you're anything like me, I want some control over the ads that are fed to my audience. So that doesn't really jive well for me. So I wouldn't move my podcast, if I were you, over from anywhere else, like Buzzsprout, Captivate, anything like that. I wouldn't move it from there into YouTube. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I do want you to do, but I wouldn't move my RSS feed once it becomes a native function of YouTube. I would not move my RSS feed from a hosting company into YouTube. Okay, that being said, another thing that YouTube is doing is that it's allowing you to label your playlists as a podcast. And that is going to be really, really impactful, because one of the steps that they're rolling out in the very near future is there's already a YouTube music app, right? You can go into there and you can look up all kinds of music that people listen on that app for. They're going to soon start to provide podcasts on that app. So I'm going to tell you how to get your podcast there soon. But what is amazing is with that functionality, then, if you create a playlist on YouTube, it's going to feed that podcast to its music app as a podcast in the future once it rolls that out. So really, really exciting. And last but not least, just zipping through the news before I give you a whole bunch of to-dos and break this all down for you. Last but not least, YouTube is really leaning into short form content right now. Off the bat, I can tell you, because I've been leaning in and testing this, my short form videos under 60 seconds or less are getting like hundreds times more views than my long form videos are. So that tells you how much YouTube is really pushing that kind of content right now and trying to get people into a habit of swiping to the next one, similar to other social media platforms. So that is the gist of the news. High level look at the news. Now let's take it down a notch and really break it down step by step. So here's what I want you to do. Some immediate to-dos for you today in order to take advantage of everything I just shared with you. Number one, if you haven't done so already, you want to make sure that you create a playlist in your YouTube channel for your podcast. So if you don't, number one, create a YouTube channel if you don't have one. All right, number one. Number two, add all of your past episodes. It could just end up looking like your static image married to your audio. Now, is that best practices? No. Is it better than nothing? Yes. Okay. Because at least it gets your show in there and it still can get played and still listened to. So definitely at least do that. If you don't have video for something, so be it. Marry it to the static episode art or show art and load that up as an episode. So add all of your old episodes. So number one, create a YouTube channel. Number two, add all of your past episodes in one way, shape, or form. Okay. Then number three, create a playlist for all of your episodes. Okay. Play a playlist, same name as your podcast, and then add all those episodes to that playlist. Now, here's where the fun gets started. Okay. This is all kind of getting to the new territory a little bit. Label that playlist as a podcast. Once you go into the channel content of your YouTube suite, you can click on the playlist tab, then hover over your podcast playlist in there, and it just looks like a normal playlist at this point. But there's three little dots that'll appear, and you tap on those three dots, and a little mini menu pops up. You're going to want to just tap on set as playlist, set as podcast. Oh my gosh, set as podcast. Because what that's going to do is now trade it from being just a regular old playlist to now being a podcast. And so you'll notice that a little symbol changes. You now see a typical RSS feed symbol, looks like a little microphone with the sound waves coming out of it. And then also on your YouTube channel, you now have a podcast tab that now has that playlist in there. So definitely want to do that. And you want to make sure, this is really, really key and actually super essential in order to fully take advantage of their integrating podcasts into their YouTube app. You have to, once you set your playlist as a podcast, in the next screen, in the settings for it, make sure that you add your show art and your description. Show art has to be at least 1400 by 1400, up to 3000 by 3000 pixels, and add in your description. Because all of that, once YouTube now turns on the light on sending all of everything that's labeled as a podcast over to their YouTube Music app, your show will be grandfathered in. It'll be one of the first, okay? But nothing will happen to it if you don't add the show art in the description. So make sure that you add those in. Otherwise, it won't get grandfathered in. It'll just stay stuck at the main YouTube platform. So you want to make sure that you do that. Okay. So next thing I want you to do, now that you've created your show as a playlist and you've labeled that playlist as a podcast, now you know that whenever YouTube's ready for it, it's going to end up in their music app. Okay. Next thing I want you to do is make sure that you set your podcast playlist as a section on your channel's main page. So you're able to customize your channel. So if you go into your channel content, there should be a button that says customize channel, or whenever you're listening to it, if there isn't one, Google how to customize your channel, because YouTube changes all the time. But tap on the little button to customize your channel, and you can actually scroll down and click to featured sections, and then click add section, and then choose a single playlist, and then choose the playlist of your podcast. Now, what that does is that now adds it as a section on your YouTube channel, and you can actually drag it up and down. So if you already have some other content labeled as sections, you can move it up or down. I think mine is the first or second section on my YouTube channel is podcasting your brand. So make sure that you do that so it gets the attention it deserves. Okay. That's it. Really simple, easy. That's the second thing I want you to do. Now, last thing I want you to do is actually, no, there's two more things. Okay. Third thing I want you to do is begin brainstorming short form content. Like I said, YouTube is really, really leaning into shorts. I mean, hundreds times the plays. Okay. So lean into what they're leaning into. And there are a couple ways that you can do this. You can, even if you don't want to turn your full show into a video podcast, which I hope eventually you do. We'll get to that in a second. But even if you don't, at least turn the cameras on while you're recording. Because there could be a clip in there that you're able to then pull, whether it's a 2-minute clip, 5-minute clip, or it's a YouTube short and it's under 60 seconds that adds short form content. 60 seconds is really key, though, if you do want to get those extra YouTube shorts pushes. So under 60 seconds, a clip that's visual rather than just your static show art will get played a lot more and shared a lot more. So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing that you can do is think of just other short form content that's related to your show, the content of your show, that you maybe can do. Now, I do a daily podcasting tip. You don't have to do something every single day. I know some people who do great stuff every day, but if that seems overwhelming to you, start with once a week or a couple days a week, just to kind of fill in the gaps in between episodes. It's just a 60-second, whatever it is. For me, it's a podcasting tip. I know people do financial advice or a parenting tip or an inspiration tip or a funny joke, or some of another friend of mine does a magic trick, right? So whatever you can do as a quick short form video that adds content, draws people in from different platforms like YouTube who might be just zipping through different things and say, oh, that's really interesting. And that's a good piece of advice. Let me see what else they have to offer. And then now you have a good listener. Okay. And a new listener. So so two things I do are daily tips. The other thing that I do is short form content. These sometimes go a little bit long, so they're usually more than 60 seconds, to be fair. So I share them on other social media rather than just YouTube. But they're called, "What's That in Your Studio, Producer Jemmy?" So I show off one of these things in my studio, whether it's something that I've made out of Legos or painted or something's gifted me or an award I've won or whatever it is. So think outside the box. What do you want your audience to know about you that really you can lean into when there's visuals added, especially? So that's really good. So those are some actions I want you to take. Now, the fourth thing I want you to consider doing, again, even if it hasn't been part of your program yet, because so many podcasters are now starting to put out a video version, podcast consumers are they're going to be starting to expect it soon. So I want you to work on that. Start with something short form if that's what helps you get comfortable. My daily tips really help me get comfortable in front of a camera. But then start to come up with an action plan that allows you to create your show as a video podcast as well by just flipping on those cameras. And instead of using something like Zoom, which isn't necessarily specified for audio and video high quality, you can use something like Riverside FM. I have a link in the show notes, always there, whether it's this episode or another one. Riverside FM is a great option for really high quality audio and video to capture for your show. And last thing I want you to, little extra tip. This is something I found out and I was like, whoa, that's so cool. On YouTube, there's actually a spot in your back end where you can look at what your subscribers are searching for. So that can be a really fun hack in order to figure out what should I be talking about next on my show. So look at what your subscribers are searching for. And if it's anything related to your topic, that might be a next topic for your show. So something to keep in mind. And that's it. That's some of the advice that I gave to my Flint Stone Media clients about YouTube. All right, as I am wrapping up here, as the rainstorm is coming down, total South Florida style, I just want to remind you to check out my daily tips on TikTok, if it's around, Instagram, YouTube, on just all the social medias. Make sure you're following me because you want to get all of my daily tips, not just the two I share every episode, but all of them. And you want to get them first so you don't wait and get in them behind. Okay, so follow me on social media. And also a new feature on podcastingyourbrand.com is I want to showcase you. So if this show is helping you grow, let me know. Just shoot me a quick email, Jemmy, Jaime at flintstonemedia.com, and I'll feature you on that section. Or just email me with a question or what have you. I'll feature on a future episode or future daily tip. All right, it's producer Jemmy signing off for now. Remember, the only thing more powerful than your voice is your spirit to use it. So let's turn that mic on, along with my memory. And right now, before we go and turn on your mics, though, we have one more daily tip. Hey, it is producer Jemmy with your tip for today, continuing to focus on finding great guests. So I'll let you know about an app that you can use to find really amazing guests. It's called Owl. It's spelled with 2 W's and 2 L's, OWWLL. And it's an app designed to connect you with experts on demand, one-on-one. So what does this mean for finding great guests? Well, great question. I'll let you know. First of all, download the app using my code PL954123, and that's going to give you a $10 credit. Then use that $10 credit by going into the app, searching by your show's topic, and looking at the slew of experts that magically appear for you, and then tapping on their bios to see what they're about, and then use that $10 credit to hit the button to call them right there and then. And you'll be able to figure out right then and there if they're going to be a great guest and if you guys have good chemistry. So it's a good app for not only discovering, but then really easily pre-interviewing your guests. So awesome. So come back here every day for more tips. Podcastingyourbrand.com. I'm producer Jemmy.
Flint Stone Media has been building brands through the power of podcasting since 2014, serving as an award-winning and highly resourceful podcast production house and consultancy firm. Work with producer Jemmy, a leader in the podcast industry, and add a new podcast to your brand's content offerings. From show development and setup through recording and distribution, producer Jemmy and her team will lend their experience launching dozens of successful podcasts and producing thousands of episodes, making creating your show a simple and easy turnkey process for you. Visit flintstonemedia.com for podcast samples. That's flintstonemedia.com.